Any change to humans, the neuroscience of change is similar to being punched in the face, even if it's good change. Change freaks people out.
AI isn't just changing dentistry, it's completely redefining it. Tune into Byte-sized podcast, the dental AI and tech podcast, and stay ahead of the curve.
Welcome back to another episode of the Byte-sized podcast. Some dental practices that invest in AI and technology see little to no return on that investment. And it doesn't have anything to do with software. There's an implementation gap, and it's the people problem. And closing that gap requires a completely different playbook than anyone in dental tech is talking about. So I have Jen Derse on today, and she is a dentist and a clinical consultant who has spent years building and systematizing one of the largest dental support organizations in the country, Espire Dental. And she has trained dental teams at scale. She's coached doctors through clinical and operational change, and has watched firsthand where AI tools and other types of technology succeed or collapse in a real practice environment. And she is now taking that experience independent. This conversation is about what she has learned from the inside. So, Jen, thanks for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you.
Excitement's a good thing. We like excitement. So, give us the 1 minute kind of like download on the Jen Derse story. You know, where are you from? What are you most scared of? Spiders, snakes? You know, no, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
My story is so not linear, and I don't think anybody has a linear story. So I'll try to be as concise as I can. I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. It's small enough, like we had drag your tractor to school day. And, you know, the row that you parked in our high school parking lot was very dependent on if you were friends with the guys that like fixed cars or not. And fortunately my car was as old as I was. So I was allowed to park in their row because I could always work on my car. Then after going to dental school what?
I was just saying, that's a great relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to make friends with everybody.
Yeah.
So after dental school at Marquette, I moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. And because I was like overcorrecting to get out of the winter. Overshot.
Yeah.
So
120 degrees.
I landed an amazing job early on. Like I first worked for a DSO and I hated it. I thought I never want to work for a DSO again. Watch out what you wish for. Because then I started one.
Don't say who it is because we're not going to talk bad about people.
No, I'm not going to talk bad about anybody. But it wasn't a fit for me at the time. And then I went to a private practice where my boss just like shoved me off the cliff of cosmetic dentistry. So, you know, I was a baby 1 year out dentist doing full mouth rehabs that I probably shouldn't have been doing. But that was what took me into that world instead of being like a super GP. I never learned surgery because I didn't need to. And then, you know, it was too hot there. So I moved back to Colorado where we could have all the seasons and the snow and the sun, and then rebuilt my practice within another person's practice. So I basically, it was like doing a scratch start because they were very, very loyal to, you know, the other provider. And so I like networked in Denver and met everybody, invited them to become patients, and, you know, rebuilt my practice. And did it really focusing on full mouth rehabs and cosmetics. And then in 2018, thought, I'm so tired of running this business.
Yeah.
why don't we make a DSO? Like that way we can hire all of the people to do the HR and the things. Well, 2020, I had a back injury. And I don't want to go into that today, but it stopped.
I was going to ask you how, but go on.
Yeah. You can see my fusion lines and a lot of surgeries. So if anybody ever has problems with their back, I know people.
Call Jen.
Yeah. but I moved into leadership then full time. And as we grew, my role was really focused on mentoring doctors, and I wanted to mentor them in more than just clinical, but also in leadership. So that's really where I spent the last 6 years as we grew from, maybe it's 7 years, as we grew from, I don't know, the one location to 39. And then last summer, I had this realization that I want to go back to working with owners and working in that space. So that's the fastest way I can share the journey. I ended up doing a lot of teaching, and it happened by accident. I didn't plan on ever being an educator, but it ended up organically happening. And then all the people I've been meeting along the way after I teach a course have said, can you help me with my practice? And I thought, yeah, like you're asking for it versus the doctors who I'm, sometimes shoving it down their throats.
Yeah.
I wanted to get back to working with those who were, owning their practice, struggling with systems and verbal skills and clinical, like all of the things. And so it really inspired me to start to move. I'm still involved with Espire, but my primary focus now is going to be, practice coaching.
Are you going to retain ownership in Espire as you transition into consulting?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to be kind of still on the board, the executive board, or an owner, but you're going to, okay, good. So have you decided on what you're going to call your coaching company?
Oh, that's such a good question, because I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and I came up with some like creative, kitschy, very me names. But one of my doctors that I mentored, he's like, I think it'd be just so you to call it Coaching with Jen or something like that, because he's like, you're so approachable, your name should be approachable. So probably something along those lines.
Yeah, that works. I would add dental in that, dental coaching with Jen. Unless you're going to go outside of dental. Are you going to go outside of dental? You're going to stay in dental?
Not to start, even though I've advised some dermatology and other businesses. I think early on, I want to stay focused in dentistry because I know it so well. And there's a lot that I can bring to the table as far as not only, because I went through the COIS Center, was a mentor there. Like there's a lot that I can give in that realm and then maybe expand later. But I really do love dentistry. So I will probably stay primarily there.
Yeah, good. Well, that's a good story. I appreciate that. That was not the 1 minute version. That was the 4.5 minute version, but that's okay. We'll take it.
I can't do anything in a minute. I mean, I can do a crown prep in 4 minutes, but I cannot tell a story.
Not the storytelling. All right. Okay. So your claim.
I told you I have ADHD and I'm high on that spectrum. So,
wait, everybody's got ADHD. Like everyone has it.
I think it's a superpower.
I think the human being is evolving into an ADHD human, and it's going to become like the new human being, right?
It's the new normal.
They used to be slow. They used to only think of one thing at a time, but now they do 10 things at a time.
It's so fun.
All right. So your claim is that when a practice brings technology, AI technology, whatever, into the practice, and it doesn't go well, it's not because of the technology or the software. It's a problem with the people. That's your claim? Did I say that right?
It's behavior. It's behaviors.
Okay. So behavior is the problem. So when you say behavior, give me an example of what you mean by that.
Well, so here's the thing. You have there's so many AI opportunities right now that we can really lean into and take advantage of. But we get this software, we get really excited about it, and then it happens in a day, and no one really budgets for the time of behavior change. And I was actually just somebody was trying to talk to me yesterday about another AI platform, and we kept talking about like all of the options you have and the dashboard and what
and the capabilities.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, but what's your implementation strategy? Because you're trying to implement, you're telling me this is going to change our lives and have more treatment outcomes. But what you're not talking about is how you implement it, how you have the conversation with the patients about it, how do
Yeah.
you integrate it? And a lot of times that it's not, we bring this into our practices and we tell our patients, our teams, like, oh, here, we've got this awesome new technology, but we're not connecting them to the purpose. And we're just like excited about this new thing. And that's really what matters is, why does this matter for us? Why does it matter for you? Why does it matter for the patient? And we have to fill those blanks in. And a lot of vendors really suck at that. Like, they sell us stuff as doctors, but they don't sell us, they don't support the systems.
Well, is that the vendor's responsibility, or is that the responsibility of the practice?
It's the responsibility of the practice. I think that that's why I am going to have a really good time in coaching, because I think, a lot of doctors learn a lot about how to be great clinicians, but they also and they think, oh, I've communicated this great new vision, and they're excited. And the team just hears this directive, but they're not the same thing. And doctors aren't trained to lead operational change. Like, they're just trained to be clinicians. And operational change takes time, it takes some money, and it takes some energy. And I do think it's on the practice side. I think there's opportunity for some of the vendor partners to, maybe do a little bit of some of that launch.
Yeah.
They don't have to do the whole thing. It's really up to us. It's like saying, like, I'm going to go buy a Peloton, but you got to ride the Peloton in order to get exercise. Right. Like, buying the Peloton itself doesn't just make you fit.
Oh, it'd be so nice if it did, though.
Right?
Wouldn't it? I would probably sell pretty well. Right.
Yeah. Be magical.
Do you think that, so you've got the doctor, you've got the team, you've got the technology. Do you think that the failure of implementation, so some of the responsibility should be on the technology company in at least being aware of the difficulties of implementation and change? Okay, so let's make sure that we acknowledge that. But inside the practice, primarily, where does that fail? Does it fail with the doctor, or does it fail with the team?
The doctor and the team. It's both. Yeah, it's both, because I can think of how many times when I was early in my career, I'd come back from the COI center and be like, I'm changing my cement and I'm doing all these things. And my team would be like, oh no, Jen, another CE course again. What is she going to come back and do to us and make our lives worse? Because now we have to change things, and changing anything is muscle memory. It's the engrams. It's knowing, like, okay, this cement cures for, I got to wait 20 seconds, or I got to wait 15 seconds. Like, it's those little things are any change to humans. The neuroscience of change is similar to being punched in the face. Even if it's good change freaks people out. So it's a challenge, but what we've got to do is navigate, creating the new systems, giving it purpose. Here's the why, and getting our teams excited about it. Because if you don't do that, if you just come in and say, hey, we're doing this, it's going to make us more money, they're out. They care less.
So what did you do in your practice? No, you did. What did you do in your practice or in your experience to help navigate that resistance to change? Like, I mean, this is obviously what your coaching and consulting is going to be about, or an aspect of it, right? Just kind of touch the high points. Like, what's the mental state, or, what do you have to create in the office in order for change to not be resisted?
That's a really good question. I think one of the things that people struggle with change is that they associate what they were doing before as almost like they take it personally. Like, this is me, I've been doing this way. So I just crashed into my water bottle.
Good.
So I've been doing this way for so long. And so because of that, you're telling me that way was wrong, rather than thinking in the now and the opportunity and, like, just because it was one way, just because we behaved a certain way, doesn't mean that was wrong. We have to focus on what are we looking at now? And I think that's a really important part of change in that conversation around change.
So you go to an event, Kois or whatever, and you come back with this new cement that you want to use, right? Now you know that this is going to improve your clinical capabilities. It's a better product. Maybe the patients won't know much of a difference, but they'll at least the product will be better, right? I don't know, whatever the situation is. So you know that this is good for the practice. It's better for the patients. Well, I should say it the other way. It's the best solution and best product to deliver the best oral health care. And that's the right thing for the practice.
Yeah.
But your team, what you're telling me is that your team isn't necessarily concerned about the oral health, the quality of the oral health care, or they are concerned, but the resistance to change is so great that they're unwilling to make the change because it's minutia. I'm just trying to dig in on that issue, because you could say, well, why is my team not aligned with me in the quality of care that I want to provide, right? Is that the problem?
I don't know that's, well, it can be. There's twofold. I think sometimes it's change management and the think again concepts or having a growth mindset. I also think there are humans that really struggle with being in a growth mindset. There's the book, I think it was Carol Dweck wrote it, that was called Mindset. And then Adam Grant just wrote one called Think Again. And we get really, really attached to our own thought processes and, philosophies. So it's really important to build a team that has an open mindset and a growth mindset. And you have to do that incrementally. So to me, then it comes into that Atomic Habits I like to read, where we do things for tiny gains. So you have to show them their first gains, but do it small, like small bites. You can't come into your office and after a CE course, come in and change everything all at once. It'll freak people out. But if you do it in little bits and bits that are purposeful and with ways that appeal to them and their mission of taking good care of their patients, then it's achievable. Does that make sense? Yeah,
no, I totally understand the baby step model, baby steps, people, baby steps, right? There's also an issue, I think, that is universal, which is that most people, employees, team members, their identity becomes wrapped around tasks that are predictable. People do not like new, scary stuff. So predictability and knowing what their job is and what they're going to be doing every day is a safe place, right? And when you inject some kind of a change, it's not just the effort it's the effort that's required to change the predictable behavior models. Okay, that's one part. But it's also their identity is like, this is who I am. My job is this. This is what I do. And this is the value that I create for the company. And so it's this idea of maybe attaching the predictable tasks that are routine in some kind of an equation where that equals their value at the practice. And what you're doing is you're coming and you're saying, oh, actually, you're more valuable than you think you are. That's probably the proper way to go about it. The value that you provide is greater than the predictable tasks. Your value is in providing great oral health care. That's what that's your value. So you're having to, you're kind of having to shift like how people value themselves, right? I mean, I've done this with my social practice. I've implemented some AI stuff, actually quite a bit with my social practice. And the same thing happens. People think they're getting fired. They think they're losing their job. We're like, nobody's getting fired. Nobody's losing their job. We're just going to do things differently. But they're terrified. They're absolutely terrified. The first thing that comes to their mind is this scary. It's like, I'm a father. You have kids?
No,
Yeah,
I have a dog.
You have a dog. Okay. Your dog your dog isn't in the backyard. Okay. The first damn thing that comes to your mind is, has it been hit? Is it dead?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is the worst case situation happens. So we just do that as like people, right? So the same thing happens in business. Like if there's a change, it's like, it's changing because, oh, we're all getting fired. They're selling the company. I'm going to be out of work. What am I going to do next? You know, it's like bad, horrible outcomes, right? That's just how people are.
So crazy how we go to fight or flight so quickly.
Immediately. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important. I think what you've brought up is something that's really important because it is imperative that a leader understand. Leaders are usually not like that. They're open to change. They're open to flexibility. They don't want to work for somebody else. They want to work for themselves because they want to control their destiny. So you have a leader who's like driving change, and they don't see the world like everybody else, but they think they do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's imperative that leaders understand that the world is not seen through their eyes, right? So you have to be super sensitive and kind of like empathetic and compassionate to recognizing what the initial reactions are going to be to change. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It has
and
to
you
be
saw
really
that in your
intentional.
practice, I imagine.
What?
So and you saw that in your practice as you made cement changes, right?
I mean, yeah. Or when we announced that we were going to become a DSO, and all we did was change our name from, our original name to our Espire Dental, and our team lost their minds. And I love them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I get it. It was scary. It's scary to think that, oh, okay, maybe like, this is going to happen. This is going to like, it's like going into this place of thinking like, well, I'm getting in an airplane, so it's going to crash. No, just because you're getting in an airplane and you see a crash somewhere on a TV show doesn't mean that your plane is going to crash. Or, people come in saying, I don't like the dentist because they had a bad experience. Well, people had bad experiences at certain DSOs. They've had bad experiences in some private practices too. Like, then let's reframe that. Let's look at, there's been great experiences in some DSOs and great experiences in private practices. It's really about the team and the leaders in the practice more than it is, the tax structure of the practice.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I get it. All right, I want to flip this a little bit on its head. So what do you do in a situation, put on your consulting hat, what do you do in a situation where you're working with a practice and we're going to say the leader is the dentist, okay? So they're leading the charge, but they are the ones that are resistant to change. They don't want to bring in any technology.
Yeah.
But they want to grow, right? How do you handle a situation like that?
Well, I think it's important to separate the behavior from the identity. Because again, some of that I've been practicing this way for a long time, and I don't want to grow. It's like they're in that like shame space of verdicting, the verdict on their past and not on their present. So I think it's really important to name that you're not being asked to like that you're not being told you're wrong. You're being asked to you're being asked to decide if you want to be right now. You have to like reframe it for them. And the doctors who stay great, like I have seen doctors who are in their 70s We have an amazing one who he adopted CERAC. He's like, I want to figure out the 3D printing in this practice. I mean, there's ones who I keep updating, and we want to change that their identity might be with being progressive more so than making them feel like they were wrong. And I think it's also important to be, I'm a big fan of Brene Brown. So you'll probably hear some of that in my language, but the vulnerability side of it, as a consultant, I have made a lot of mistakes. And
no.
I mean, I think my first real big mistake was I bought a house in Scottsdale in 2007. That was a real bad time for those of us who were adulting in 2008. Recall that era. I ended up selling it for less than half of what I paid for it. Bad business move. Is that my identity, that I'm a bad business person and terrible with money? Not at all. But it was something I learned from in my future real estate. So I actually think that whole concept of like fail fast is really great, because I mean, you learn way more from your failures than you do from your successes. So I think sharing that when I'm working with a doctor who's kind of stuck, I think sometimes sharing that, hey, I've been where you're at, where it feels a little bit icky and weird.
Yeah.
And it's also changing our muscle memory. We change somebody's bite and it feels weird. This is no different than changing somebody's bite and going, okay, like I got to relearn how to chew because you realigned my teeth. So I live in analogies, and
that's good. Analogies work.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me is that at the dentist level, when you're asking a dentist to make change, that there's actually like a psychological kind of like reaction that they immediately feel like they were doing things wrong in the past, or that's part of the problem. I never really recognized that. So
it's a shame response.
So it's a shame response. They're like, oh, I've been doing, oh, okay. Well, that's really, really interesting. So at the doctor's level, you're still, I mean, as a consultant, you're kind of coming in and you're dealing with the doctor that's in that type of a situation in the same way that you would as a doctor dealing with an employee that's resistant to change. It's kind of the same model, right?
Yeah, we're all humans.
I've never really thought about that. I've never really thought about the doctor feeling shame or guilt or feeling they've done things wrong in the past. You've seen that happen with people, with doctors?
Yeah, I mean,
or with yourself?
Pardon?
Or with yourself?
Oh, for sure. You know what? Actually, myself, for sure. I've realized that there's times where, like I tried something, a procedure. Like I was an early adopter of 3D printing, like really early. And it sucked. That thing was like a pain in the rear. And, another one of our doctors, then later on, 10 years later, then they wanted to try adopting it. And at first I was really resistant to it. I was resistant to
no, don't do it.
It was like, this didn't work for me in the past. And you know what? It ended up working for them, maybe not in the way that they thought it was gonna, like they thought it was gonna work for them one way, but it ended up working in a completely different way. And I appreciate that. I'm like, okay, I was wrong. Like you took this and I see where it is working now. So I think that's important to like share those processes. Now, would I tell you to run out and buy Sprint Right? Probably not necessarily. It really depends on how you would implement it in your practice. If you're just printing off models for $15, there's a lab up the street that can do that for you. It's going to take forever to recover that investment.
Right.
If you're doing, it really depends on how you implement things. And so I was wrong about that though in the past. Like I think that's important. I think that's so important to be vulnerable and share that. Like it's not a shame point. It's just, hey, like this is life. I mean, are you wrong because you used a phone that was connected to the wall at one point and now you use one of these things? Like that doesn't mean the old phone was wrong. It was part of the progress to get where we're at today.
Yeah, for sure. There's also an kind of a metaphor or maybe an analogy, I guess, or some symbolism here, that if a doctor is willing to take on this fail fast idea, you want to fail fast because that's how people learn. That's how we learn. That's how we get better. We can't just get better. We have to fail to get better. I would tell my kids that all the time. Like, if you're going to go do something, what you want to do is you want to fail as soon as possible. You're looking for, not for the success, you're looking for the failure. As soon as you hit that, you're good to go. Overcome it, move on. So that idea, if a dental team is watching their doctor and the doctor sits down and says, hey, we've been doing things. So it was my decision. We've been doing things this way for the last 10 years and we need to change. And I take full responsibility. I don't even know if you need to say these words or not, but it was my decision and we're going to do it better now. What that does is give a very clear example to the team that they should follow suit in terms of how to improve in their own tasks and responsibilities. So vulnerability is like a superpower, right? Being all buttoned up and doing everything right all the time is not a superpower, because then that image is the image that your team thinks that they have to portray, is never screwing up, right? But we want to screw up, and we want to have a safe space, so to speak, for screw ups, right?
Well, and you just gave me a thought, because sometimes that screw up is such a big opportunity, because how you handle the screw up can actually make you shine bigger. It's a philosophy that comes out of the Ritz-Carlton. Remember when Horst Schulze would say, like, you have this budget for if you're, if you screw something up, you have $2,000, $3,000, whatever it is to make it right. I mean, one of my friends worked at the Four Seasons, and she had to actually, like, something happened where somebody spilled on a client's Louis Vuitton, and she went down to the store in Cherry Creek and bought a new one and brought it back and handled it. And what do you do? What happens in those instances? It's like that's when you create your raving fans. You're like, oh my gosh, they went above and beyond. So even reframing some of those concepts, it's like in any relationship. Think about in our marriages or in our friendships, when we go through these road bumps and we have an opportunity to navigate that and say, oh, you know what? That was hard. Let's have a tough conversation. And what happens after that tough conversation? You're like locked in even more and more committed to the marriage, the friendship, the patient interaction. It's clear as kind. It's Brené's clear as kind. And when she created that phrase, I became obsessed with it, because it's one of those opportunities where if I'm going to have a conversation with you, even if it's hard, clear as kind. And so I just think that ties into all of the things with the failure and the identity and kind of cool neuroscience.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like, it doesn't matter what business you're in. Like, dealing with most of the problems in business they're not product problems. Well, sometimes they are, but they're usually not. They're usually people problems, usually communication problems. And if you have a dental practice that is rolling and doing really, really well, you'll notice that the culture and the communication inside the practice is super fluid. People aren't afraid to push back. There's healthy conversations that have conflict in them, and nobody feels hurt or ashamed or like they can't speak their mind, because that's how you work through all the problems. That's how you work through everything, right? So let me shift a little bit. Do you notice?
I've taken you down this rabbit hole. We were talking about it.
It's okay. No, this all has to do with the implementation of technology, because the problem is, your claim is that stuff fails. If it does fail, it fails because of a people problem, not a technology problem.
Exactly.
This is exact. We're not off topic at all. We're not off topic. So, have you seen a difference in the willingness of a doctor to adopt technology based on age?
I think it's a contributing factor.
Okay.
Oh,
no,
but I also think I've seen I've seen the 70-something-year-old doctor say that the CEREC isn't accurate.
Okay.
And at the time, he would take an impression, send it to lab. They were just scanning the impression and milling the Emacs crown out. So it wasn't an accurate statement. Yet at the same time, I've seen this 72-year-old doctor that was like, cool, I've never had a CEREC. I'm going to get in this. I'm going to start learning how to design crowns. I'm going to get on YouTube. It's a lot about the person. And I think it's harder to change sometimes at that age. Like I think about, how our brains work and some of the ingrained muscle memory. I mean, sometimes I have conversations with even my parents. And I'm like, oh my God, you're so old school.
Yeah.
I can't with you right now. I have to go. So yes and no. I think that age is a contributing factor, but not a limiting factor. I do think that there are some doctors who are really excited about learning and seeing. I taught a class in Philadelphia at the end of last year, and there was an 83-year-old doctor in the room taking my class. And I mean, he's still going to CE and being a part of it all. So I think it is, sometimes it's the person. I hate to lock people into one category.
Do you think there's a level of false confidence with some doctors? And this may not be related to age, but it's the idea that their decisions they're confident in their decisions so much so that they're just simply unwilling to make changes because they just know that they're right. Not that they don't want to or willing to change, but it's false confidence, right? Have you seen that?
There's new data out on this. Like the more confident you are, like the inversion of confidence and curiosity, actually the more confident you are in your beliefs, the more likely you are to be inaccurate.
To be wrong.
I know. And they did it coming out of politics. Like, 3 universities.
I know. I was just going to say, that's where I was going to bring up politics, but I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not bringing up politics, but you did. Okay. So we won't go down.
I did that to you.
We won't go down politics. You're in Denver.
But
we
the
already know
people
who
who would
you are.
say that, they'd probably say that the people who wrote the studies are wrong.
Was it you and I that discussed Dan Pink's research? Was that you?
I love him.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed.
Okay, tell me about it. Is that related to this? If I'm remembering right?
I think so. I think it is, because I think, so we think about, there was a book that Dan wrote a long time ago that was called Drive.
Okay.
And that one hit me hard in leadership in my practice, because he talked about people being more driven by purpose than by these little dollar amounts or spiffs or that we call in the industry. And I think that was where we were going with that. Was we were talking about Dan Pink a while ago and how that integrates with this. Like if we say, like, okay, you get $1 for every X-ray, does that change habit long term?
Right.
It's something that, like, if you do those types of things, it can change for the short term, but it doesn't change for the long term. And then if it's not something that is aligned with purpose, the habit falls off. I think his study was actually over licking envelopes and how many you could lick for like 100,000 envelopes and penny an envelope or something like that. And people stop.
Oh, okay. Yeah, people stop. They're like, yeah, this is now worth another penny.
Yeah. And so how many offices have you seen where they're like, oh, we want to start selling Sonicare toothbrushes or more Oral-B's or whatever it is. We want to sell this stuff in our practice. And then they put this, like, couple dollars every toothbrush you sell. Does it create a long-term habit? The only time those habits, those are really effective is if you have a short-term situation where you have to get X amount of envelopes done and a high volume of them. But eventually the brain tires of it because it's not affiliated with purpose.
Right. So what you're talking about is being able to, some people are money motivated. Some team members are money motivated. An example of this is like, we have this product where we we help practices get Google reviews. And the best way to get a Google review is to just simply ask a great patient for a review. That's it. There's no magic. Okay. Well, there is some magic. The magic happens with trying to get your team, figuring out a way to get your team to ask for the review, because the problem isn't, are you going to get a great review? You will. The problem is that if you ask, will you get a review? You absolutely will get a review. The problem is the team's got so many freaking things on their plate that they can't do one more thing. And it's kind of awkward to ask for a review. So we've recommended over the years to create cash spiffs or incentives in some way. And the thing we run into all the time is like, well, I have a couple of employees that would like ask for reviews like crazy if we gave them, $5 Starbucks card for every review. But these other employees, they don't care about a $5 Starbucks card or a Sephora card or cash. They want to be recognized, right? They like recognition. It's the personality. It's right. So there's a personality matrix out there. We're not all motivated by the same stuff. So I think what you're getting at here is kind of opening the door to the idea that we have to understand the personality matrix of our employees to know what they want. And they don't all want to be motivated in the same way that we are motivated, right? So like a lot of practices will do like those personality tests. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there's some really
like
great
DISC,
ones out there. You've
probably
the DISC, DISC or whatever, to try and align the way in which leaders communicate with their team members to understand how to talk to them, right? How to create an incentive that's actually going to motivate and create, because some people, their purpose is to make more money, give them money. The other people are like, no, I want to feel like I'm part of the team, or I want to know that that I have longevity and security at this company, right? I want to know that I'm valued in the overall goals of the company. It has nothing to do with money, right? They'll just work for you forever for the same amount as long as you listen. Maybe people just need to be listened to, So I think that's kind of what you're going at in answering that question a little bit.
Yeah, it's like the love languages book.
Yep.
Yeah. But
Yep,
I
totally.
think as leaders, if you're going to be a good leader, you have to almost be able to do it all. And that's why you're a leader. Like you're supposed to be more competent than some of your, the team that only goes to their default communication style. Like when you think about when we talk about to our patients are in this fight or flight state and they're in a default behavior state. So they might say something that's wonky or offensive, or maybe they're not very friendly. Well, and then I see team members go, oh, so that patient's not friendly. But you have to remind them, like, they're in default state. We aren't. And so then take another step back. As leaders, we don't get to be in default. We have to stay in our cortex and be in that high level all the time. And some of that is knowing, like, okay, this person, I need to be really intentional about how I communicate correcting a behavior with this teammate versus this teammate. We have to know that. But then when you talk about those motivating behaviors, I think we have to do them all. Like, we have to be able to say, like, okay, we're going to implement the spiffs, or we're going to pay you a percentage of your production, whatever that looks like. And I'm going to celebrate you all the time. When I am in with a patient and an assistant and they've taken an x-ray for me, it's how easy is it to say, that is a great x-ray. I bet you both have to work hard to get that root on that back tooth. It's like, congratulations to you for biting down on that for so long. And to the assistant, good job on getting that angle. Like, I don't even know if I could have gotten that myself. So that's leadership and being in your cortex and not default behaviors.
Yeah. I think a lot of dentists, I hope I'm not overreaching here, but I think a lot of dentists coming out of school, maybe not a lot, but a significant portion of dentists come out of school and their model is, I'm going to be a great clinician And that's what's going to drive the practice growth. And they're never thinking about leadership, which
No,
is the beginning of a lot of problems. Is that fair to say? Do you see that?
that's 100% fair to say, because they come out, well, and I could go down a rabbit hole on this, but they're coming out right now with almost, they're even lower in their leadership than where I would say like previous generations have graduated.
Really?
And I don't want to sound like the old person who had to walk uphill both ways to school in the snow, which I did with holding a French horn. But
yeah, right. You took a tractor to schools. Don't lie. Okay.
Yeah. So what I also say is like, when I hear stories in a dental school, and I have a friend that teaches in a dental school, and this friend said, my students weren't ready to take X exam. And so I postponed the exam because I felt like they needed more practice clinically. And then the student's response was actually that, no, you're getting in the way of my progress. When this teacher was trying to teach them and make them better, there's some weird psychology that's happened in this. I read the anxious generation to try to figure out how to interact with some of my younger doctors. And I think that it's unfortunate, but some of their challenges are going to start happening now. And when they're like less equipped for it. So I do think that is impactful.
Let me switch gears a little bit. So when we kind of prepped for this, you were talking about one of the things, and this could be considered a technology or a technological change or change management, was one of the first things you look at when you come in and consult is whether they've got a perio program or not, and how it's set up. So can you just describe what you mean by a perio program? I think I know what you mean, but just clearly define that. And then let's talk about that as an actual, I guess you could call it a technology. I mean, there are some softwares out there that do like AI perio charting and things like that. We don't need to talk about a specific type of a software, but I want to talk more about like implementing that program and talk through maybe some of the change management things that you have to deal with when you do that.
This is more common than I think people realize is the struggle with the perio program. I would say like one of the things that you can recognize it early on. One, are they staging and grading their perio? Like it's easy to open up the charts and do a chart review and see, are they staging and grading? You can look at their period of prophy ratio. Like, do you have, are you in the 10%? I've seen 5%. Where you just run the numbers of like any perio code, including SRP and their 4910s. Is it 5%? Is it in that 30 to 40% where the national average is? Like, where are you in that? So it's pretty easy to evaluate. And, I think that's one of the first things that I think is important to try to flip, because people start to see results and they see outcomes. And there's absolutely AI that helps us with that diagnosis and process. Yeah.
So
did I answer your question?
You go to,
did I just ramble?
Yeah, you did. But let me ask a follow. Yeah, you did. You answered it. So you go into a practice. I want you to give me a description of a practice that's running that doesn't have a really solid perio program. And then tell me maybe the first 2 or 3 problems that occur when you try and implement the perio program. Where are you getting resistance? And why is it difficult or what are some of the things you have to overcome in order to get it functioning correctly inside the practice?
This comes back to the shame cycle, because if you tell a hygienist that they've been monitoring like supervised neglect for 14 years and we should have been doing this all along. My one of my coaches said to me once, and I've kept it, I've taken it with me. don't should on yourself.
Don't should on yourself. That's actually pretty good.
and you want to keep that. You want to, when people are going, oh my God, I should have been doing this for 14 years. What have I been doing? Or because I didn't do it, I was wrong. This is one of those opportunities to overcome that gap again and have like real life conversations. Like here's some real stories. And I have documented cases that I've kept and harvested over the years of where, here's this patient who has been seeing, the dentist for 7 years consistently. They're coming in and they're getting their annual bite wings and they're showing up for their 1110s. And then new doctor comes in and we're implementing taking FMXs. And the FMX shows all this bone loss and something happened, but the x-rays weren't right. And you could see, like, if you go back and look, like, okay, like you weren't getting the bone in the x-rays. You were just in default behavior, taking an x-ray and doing 1110 and not being intentional. So that speaks to the heart because like the patient lost their a lot of teeth. My mother-in-law, bless her heart. She's a trip and she is fierce. So I feel bad for, the dentist that she had bone loss. But she had an experience where she was seeing a dentist, like, and then they took a panel and they didn't take bite wings for her comprehensive exam. A year later, she goes back in and they basically took those type of pano x-rays that look, it's like two halves of a pano. It's not even a bite wing. Yeah. And, but the image quality is different in a bite wing than it is in panos. Yeah. So again, missed bone loss. And then her insurance changes. So when her insurance changed, she goes to a new doctor and the new doctor is like, hi, you have like a 9mm pocket and there's unrestorable decay under number 2. So you're going to lose 2, you're going to lose number 30 and you're like, and so like, imagine that being one of your family members, that type of neglect. So I think we have to go through that space of making sure we're vulnerable. Like this happens. It's happened to other people out there in the world. And now we're going to make sure it doesn't happen to you. And it's okay. Like where you were at is okay. And where we're going, we're excited for it. And we want you to be on board. I think there's, the different language when you should be doing it.
It's a language issue. It's like, don't shit on yourself. It's like,
you can keep that now.
Yeah, I will. But I'll probably drop the actual word in there on accident because I like to say it.
I'm trying to be good for your podcast.
No, we curse. Go ahead, drop whatever you want.
Okay.
So you come in, you've got a hygienist. They've been there for 14 years. They haven't been doing bite wings. They haven't been doing great perio prep. There's not attention to detail in terms of perio, right? And you have to deliver that message to the hygienist and the rest of the team to some degree that things need to change for the better. And that can come off as, holy cow, you should have done it like this. And they feel horrible because it's not just they did their job wrong. It's now you're blaming them for ruining all these people's teeth, right? And not providing oral health care. And, you can, that's obviously the wrong way. Or you can frame it in a way in which it's an opportunity. It's positive and it's an opportunity.
Always.
And that is hard to do because a lot of leaders aren't taught how to be aware of kind of how to speak. So I would imagine that like part of coaching, okay, this is a little bit of a plug for coaching. It's so difficult to learn those communication skills that it's almost impossible to see them until they're shown to you, right? So
yes,
that's what a coach does. A coach comes in and says, okay, we all know there's a problem here, but how do we talk about it in the right way? I mean, are you going to be involving a lot of that in your coaching and
yes,
consulting services?
And I'd hope that any doctor can learn from, because I will model it And I've learned a lot from the people who've modeled before me as well.
Yeah.
But to me, like if you come in, and when I coach a doctor, I hope that they learn to coach even their teams when I'm not there. But I will also coach the doctor. And I also do think in coaching, there's some triangulating too, where as the doctor, you don't have to be the bad guy coming in and saying, I want to implement perio. You can bring in the coach and we're like, okay, I know I'm going to make this hard for you. And I'm excited for you because you're going to grow. And like the word "and" is such a key word. A lot of people default to "but."
Yeah.
But just feel icky.
Yeah. It's like,
right?
But I just said something, but I said something nice, but now I'm going to take it away.
And immediately you're like, oh my God, they're sandwiching me and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But if you can come in with some enthusiasm and excitement for growth, I mean, and I look at this as, when you were learning new behaviors, it's no different. And I try to find out, like, okay, tell me about you. Tell me what sport you play. Okay, you love golf. Well, when we change your swing on your golf club, it's going to go differently, right? You're going to hit the ball a different direction or farther or less or whatever. And it's hard at first, but then it gets easier, right? Or if you're a runner, if we talk about your pronation, like these are all conversations because it's important to have one-on-ones with all the team and understand them. But having some of those analogies, like it's going to get hard first and you're going to be better. And I'm excited for you. And I hope you're excited too. And there are times where there are some people where you ultimately, you can't, what does people in the South say? Like you can't put in what God left out. I feel like that was in a movie. There are going to be people who you can't coach. So I find that to be like 10% of the population. I think the rest, there's like the 10% that are like, I mean, I've had doctors who record and transcribe our conversations for later, 10% of the population. Then I've had people who are like full on no, and then bell curve in the middle. There's a lot of opportunity.
Well, that brings me to a question that's kind of a tough question that I want to ask you. Okay. We will cut this out if you don't have something good. Okay. So in all of your experience, all the roles that you had at dental practices or the types of practices you've worked with and the coaching that you've done and so forth, what is the one thing that no coaching program or software or technology or incentive program is going to fix in a dental practice?
The one thing that nothing can fix.
Well, it can be fixed. I'm just saying not coaching, not software, not technology, not a great incentive program. What's the one thing that can't be fixed?
I think the thing that is the toughest to fix is like a really, really fixed mindset on top of like anger and resentment. So when you put all those together, those things are really difficult to overcome. And it happens, it's okay. But I think when people don't feel maybe heard or part of the conversation and they become angry and they go down this resentment rabbit hole, it's really, and if it happens before you have a relationship. So the thing that comes to mind, Ryan, so when we brought in a new group of practices that we've worked with the doctor who owns the 5 practices. And then that doctor has told the young doctors, you're going to be a partner with me. You're going to buy in. And then the doctor sells to the DSO.
Yeah. Or
and
sells.
It's a big change. That big change. So that big change, remember, is a punch in the face. And on top of that, there's dishonesty.
Well, it's a breach of trust. It's a breach of trust.
Yeah. That's really hard to overcome, a breach of trust. And that can breed resentment if it's not handled well and fast. And I would say like when that has happened, it happened once for us, and we realized like, okay, we're never going to have that experience again. We're going to make sure that like everybody knows what's going on. Make sure your doctors are in part of the conversation. But that was tough because I thought if I could have gotten to those humans first and had real life conversations with them and known like, hey, you're going to be a part of a group of people that like are going to love you and care about you, and you're going to have more opportunity. Like, I want to give you that. I think that I couldn't fix that.
Yeah.
So
I get you. That's a tough one for sure.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
That's really, really hard. I mean, it's the same thing in families and relationships, when there's a breach of trust, it's like, it's a long road back,
Yeah.
So, okay, cool.
And it's so big when it happens.
It's so big. It hits the core. It hits the core, You almost kind of have to, in some situations, not all, but some, you got to start over. You got to like say it's time for that employee or that person to move on and build from scratch, build relationships with trust from new. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's no, like, if you think about it, if in a marriage, you can cut this out if you want to, but if you think about it in a marriage, when somebody breaches trust and is involved with another person outside of marriage and then comes back and says, oh, I did this, it's really hard for those marriages to recover. I would imagine the data on that is that it's very, very low. So
it's hard. Yeah.
Like those big trust breaches and you can even if like what I have seen is like, if you're involved with the person that broke the trust, if you're affiliated with them, it's still hard to like overcome that as the person who is affiliated. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, well, that's a great place to end. Thanks for that horrible, terrible example. For all the people, for all the people who are watching this that have seen this happen. Jeez, Christmas, Jen. No, it's good. It's actually a great analogy because that's the level of pain and stuff in people's hearts when trust is broken. If you make a promise, you freaking keep it. So
yes.
Anyway,
thank you. Do what you say you're going to do when you said you're going to do it. I think that's like a Steve Anderson thing or something like that. But you got to have integrity.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Jen. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I hope that I hope I didn't take you off of too many crazy paths going down leadership when we were talking about AI.
I think this is really good. Don't apologize.
Okay.
I think this is really good, and I think that your model and your methodology is very. It's not the way that you approach the subject. I mean, I've talked to a lot of dental consultants over the years. I've had several on the podcast, and everybody has a different angle. Everybody brings their own personality, and I think you have a very unique approach because you've had so much experience in dealing with problems. So it's not just like the way that you're answering these questions comes from a place of like, there's not like the solution that fits every problem. There's a modality that you have to adopt, and the modality works like this. And rather than saying, okay, well, here are the 7 steps to running a great practice, let's just do all these things. No, you're like talking about the problems that arise with the cement example. Like, it used to be 4 minutes and now it's 10 minutes. And that causes problems. I mean, to have that nuance and understanding in like change management is super helpful. I think you're going to be a great consultant. You're already consulting. So, but I think that you have you're going to help a lot of practices. And I think that your experience and the way that you approach it thoughtfully is great. So we didn't go off topic.
Okay. Thank you. I mean,
yeah.
Adrian, I think everyone is trying. And everyone is doing the best they can with the tools they have. And sometimes you need more tools or a different tool. And I think in leadership and in coaching, if you can approach from that perspective with and do it with heart, I think that's, I don't know. I just think that's such an important way to do that, where so that people feel seen, feel heard, do it with heart, and have empathy. Leadership's actually, it's not that hard.
Well, no, if you have all that, it should be actually kind of fluid, right? The problem is how do you do that? That's the hard thing. You're having to change a leader and change team members to be empathetic and like, if people just listened and were empathetic, we wouldn't have anybody dying on the planet, probably, outside of like crazy people. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you can just get people to that place and you have a communication model that is, that allows for people to resist and push and press and then work through stuff, you can work through pretty much anything, you know? And, so anyway, so thank
and
you
then you
for
come
coming
back to
on. I
the
really
clear as
appreciate
kind.
Yeah.
It makes communication way less scary.
Yeah, totally. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun to do this and chat with you, and you ask really great questions. It was fun.
I try and keep it real, you know?
Yeah. And you're good at wrangling me and like bringing it back.
You didn't go off topic, so don't worry about it. Somebody told you so we can talk about therapy now. Someplace in your childhood, somebody told you were off topic and that you were ADD or ADHD. And so you always keep asking me, I'm sorry, am I not on topic? And you were on topic the whole time. I think that you need to realize that you're amazing and you're not off topic and you're not as crazy as you think. Okay. We'll end there. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Byte Size Podcast. Tune in to stay up to date with everything dental AI and tech.